Dragon Ball has had a lot of video game adaptations over the years, some great and some not so great, to put it as kindly as possible. In this compilation video, we will be going over what I consider to be the worst of the worst when it comes to Dragon Ball games. And to start off, we'll be going all the way back to 1996 with the release of Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Battle 22. I remember bringing this game home from the video store and booting it up, seeing the amazing animated intro and being so disappointed. Since it was so awful, I only spent around 15 to 20 minutes playing it. Remember, this was pre-YouTube and the internet I had access to was slow as balls, so all I had to go on was the cover. And the cover is very enticing, with amazing artwork and sprite work straight from the anime. But this is a textbook example of don't judge a book by its cover. Well, I guess it's game in this case. Now I'm going to preface this retrospective by saying that when I first played this game as a kid, my expectations were influenced by the fact that I had already played Budokai 1. That being said though, I still think I would have hated it. So, is this game as bad as I remember, or is it worse? Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Battle 22 is a Super Butoden sub-series game that was released in Europe in 1996 for the PlayStation 1. For whatever reason, it wasn't released in North America until 2003, which is strange given that Budokai 2 was launched that same year. It may be because Dragon Ball Z didn't really take off in the West until about this time, and they needed something for fans who hadn't yet upgraded to the 6th generation of consoles. Due to its late arrival into North America, it was absolutely slammed by critics, with one of my favourite quotes being from Electronic Gaming Monthly with,
"I'm pretty sure DBZ creator Akira Toriyama could take a dump in a bag and sell it to you for the same price, and you'd get more entertainment value out of it."
They also listed the only pro of the game as being able to turn the power off. It's funny. It's funny because it's true. The game starts with a beautiful 2D animated opening. This game was in production around the same time as the Buu saga was being released in Japan. So this is peak 90s Dragon Ball Z animation, where they had really honed the style to what I consider to be the best Dragon Ball Z has ever looked. Look at how amazing Frieza's tail animation is.
Nice.
All 22 characters feature in this opening, which is actually where the game gets its name from. I'm ashamed to admit that as a kid, I didn't have a high enough IQ to figure that out. I always assumed it was just one of those weird Japanese naming conventions where they have really obscure titles just because. I'm looking at you, Kingdom Hearts.
Who is this kook?
All the characters look crisp and on model, superimposed onto a really plain looking background that allows all of the focus to be placed on the characters. As a kid, when I saw this opening for the first time, I was extremely impressed, but also a little confused. At that point, I had only seen up to the end of the Cell Saga, so I had no idea who Great Saiyaman was, or Super Buu. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know who Super Bout was. The version I played was pretty much just a direct translation of the Japanese version. So most of the characters have the Japanese or a bad 90s translation of their name into English. Gotenks is Go Trunks, Raccoon goes by his alias Lycum. Both Android 16 and 18 are referred to as C16 and C18, which I assume stands for Cyborg. Technically they are cyborgs, so that is a more fitting name, but I think Android sounds cooler. Like Jesus once said, if you're going to be wrong about something, then it better be cooler. I may have paraphrased that a bit, but you get the idea. Captain Ginyu is called Genius, but spelt wrong. Master Roshi is Genius Turtle, but this time Genius is spelt correctly. Majin Buu is Majin Buu, as in a scary ghost. The Supreme Kai is Kaioshin, and then there is Super Saiyan 3 Goku, who is referred to as Mega Goku.
I will find a level beyond a Super Saiyan!
So what? Like a Mega Saiyan? Ultra Saiyan?
You're mocking me.
Maximum Over Saiyan.
If I had progressed far enough to unlock Super Saiyan 3 Goku as a kid, I would have genuinely thought that that was the name of the form, because this would have been my first exposure to it. Speaking of weird translations, I have to add in some of my favourite character bios found in the manual. Gohan.
Minus, perhaps, but max's courage and strength, all you have to do is go for it. First child of Super Goku and Chi-Chi, you has Piccolo as a sensei. You have great respect for him. However, you are kind and timid like a little gentleman, but within you hide a power that is capable of making such terrifying enemies as Frieza and Vegeta tremble with fear. Even though you are small and your fighting technique is nothing special, your special moves such as your Kamehameha or Masen Light are very powerful.
Deborah.
With your evil sword and the flames of hell as your allies, consume all those who dare resist you. You are master of the underworld and have come with Babidi. You ate very difficult to reach and stand well above most warriors. And furthermore, you have a sword. Use it as a special weapon. Attack without letting your opponent get too close. You can then use energy balls full of hellish flames. But beware! Your size becomes a problem if your opponent manages to get right up to you and make for your legs. In that case, you have one solution. Hang on. Use combinations of normal buttons for close combat. Forward/backwards plus square.
And finally, my absolute favourite, the Great Saiyaman.
Be a superhero. Fight for love and justice. Show them what you've got. You are still at school. So, you have to fight behind this mask. Neither Videl nor the others must know. But above all, you love wearing this getup. With varied techniques of a good level, Gohan is not very strong in the attack. Our Masked Avenger does not have the experience of Gohan, and in any case, not in manga or TV series. Luckily, you are good potential Gohan. So forward, Avenger! So he's not strong in the attack, unlike Gohan, who is strong in the attack. So he's a Gohan, but he's not the Gohan that's good at attack, unlike in the manga, who that Gohan is good at the attack. I don't understand what the fuck is going on.
All the voices are taken from the Japanese anime rather than the Funimation version. And I really do mean all of the voices, even the announcer will speak entirely in Japanese, which would be fine if it weren't for the fact that there are 0 subtitles. So before each tournament match, there will be a rather lengthy cutscene with the announcer speaking. But I have no idea what he is saying, and it's unskippable. There were additional cutscenes before each character's match, but they were omitted from the English version, probably because they'd have to dub them over or subtitle them, so they didn't bother with either, which begs the question of why they kept the announcer after removing all of the others. In any case, I doubt we missed out on much because honestly they look pretty bad. The 2D fighters are overlaid onto 3D backgrounds, with the backgrounds looking pretty bland. In most stages, the fighters look really out of place. The character sprites are modelled straight off of the animation cells from the anime. Despite the low resolution that the PS1 could output, they look pretty good when they aren't moving. Each attack only has a few frames of animation, making it look choppy. Additionally, some of the characters' proportions are a bit off. When Gohan punches, for example, his arms appear short and stumpy. The size of the child characters are also really odd. They look too big in comparison to the adults. This is most apparent with Gotenks and Frieza. I know Frieza isn't particularly tall, but next to Gotenks he looks tiny. There's also a weird perspective quirk where when a character flies up into the sky, it appears that they grow in size. Except for the character selection screen, which is horribly constructed, the menus are straightforward but functional. Some of the sprites on the character selection screen are difficult to see because of the crowded design. Captain Ginyu has it the worst. He is pretty much entirely covered up by the characters' names. The soundtrack is okay, it's a bit too quiet in comparison to the characters' voices and sound effects. So that is how the game looks and sounds, but how does it play? Not good. Ultimate Battle 22 is a side-on 2D fighter. Despite the fact that the environments have been modelled in 3D, you are unable to strafe between different planes, and the battles always take place from the same side-on perspective. Battles have no introduction. You and your opponent appear out of nowhere on the stage and engage in a fight. It just starts without anyone yelling fight or anything. The fights are only 1 round each, but the health bar is quite large and needs to be depleted twice in order to win. You can perform the game's 4 basic movements by pressing the face buttons. X will kick, square will punch, circle will unleash your ki, and triangle will let you fly into the air, and can also be used to bring you back down to the ground. The D-pad is rotated in quarter or half-quarter circle motions to perform special moves, which are then followed by a punch or a kick, but you've undoubtedly noticed how slow everything looks. This game is so slow, and this is coming from someone who happily played Ocarina of Time at 17 frames per second as a kid, and even I would say that this is slow. This game feels so sluggish and unresponsive pretty much all of the time. It's almost like the characters have to contemplate their life choices before performing any of the attacks. There is just no flow to the gameplay at all, which makes performing moves really difficult. Even just doing a simple punch or a kick feels awful. Moves that should be simple only work roughly half the time, and the timing is terribly awkward. When you move backwards and forwards, your character will slide awkwardly along the ground.
What am I watching?
I don't know, but I hate it.
Whether you're on the ground or in the air, you can use the shoulder buttons to dash left or right, but once again the movement is very sluggish and unresponsive. It is really easy to run into an opponent unintentionally, or to simply touch the perimeter of the playing area while doing so. Master Roshi and Mr. Satan cannot fly up in the air, which is a slight disadvantage. However, it is actually really hard to stay in the air. You'll find yourself being constantly knocked down to the ground, so not being able to fly isn't as much of an issue as you would think. The strength bar, which can be found directly below the health bar, provides an indication of the total amount of ki that each player possesses. Ki will be depleted at a faster rate in proportion to the strength of the attack. If you let it run out completely, your character will need to take a moment to regain their breath, during which time you will be vulnerable to an attack. You can replenish your strength by holding down any one of the 3 attack buttons, although this process is excruciatingly slow. It takes some time just for the charging animation to begin, and during that time you are defenseless. This is true not only while you are charging your ki, but also before you can even begin to do so. Managing your ki is very important to having a successful fight, but the speed in which it decreases is extremely harsh, and the game gives you no space to recharge it reliably. The best method for getting your ki back is to wait for your opponent to start charging and then do so yourself. The strength meter will recharge very slowly on its own as the fight goes on. The exceptions to this is Android 16 and 18. Their strength bars will auto recharge much faster, but you cannot do a manual recharge with them. Mr. Satan cannot use ki based attacks, so he has no strength bar. There are no transformations or fusions during battle, except for certain special moves. It's just like in the first Budokai Tenkaichi game, where each transformation is a separate character. Not that there are many transformations anyway. Both Cell and Frieza are in their final form, and Gogeta and Gotenks are already fused. In the Butoden games, the screen would split so you could get far away from your opponent. In this game though, it does not, and you cannot create much space between yourself and the opposing fighter. As a result, you don't have enough area to perform special attacks. They are also easily avoided and diverted. They drain a large portion of your ki, so if you miss, you're pretty much screwed. Even if you do release a special ki move correctly, it's hard to even tell because most of them just look like fireballs.
Disappointing.
This game is really hard, but not in a challenging way, where you want to strive to get better, but more in an annoying way, where it's so hard and it feels like nothing is working properly, that you're making absolutely no progress. That kind of hard. There are difficulty settings, but even having the game set to easy was a struggle. The AI has 2 states, either being omniscient and countering everything you do, or brain dead. It appears that the less active you are, the worse they get, which leads me to believe that the AI is actually reading player inputs. For example, if you just stand at the arena's perimeter, the AI has no idea what to do. They will sometimes just stand there doing nothing or hop around aimlessly, but as soon as you start playing again, they will start beating you to a pulp. I even tried this on the hardest difficulty, and got the same result. In essence, the gameplay is utter rubbish. It's a pain in the ass to get even the most basic of moves to work. There's no tutorial or practice mode so you can figure out the controls. It's just trial by fire with this game. It doesn't help that there is no in-game combo list you can look up, so if you didn't have the manual back in the day, then you are shit out of luck. I'm shit out of luck playing this shit. So we've established that the gameplay is a pile of crap. But what about the game modes in which we might endure it?
How about this for another game? I'll fight without using either of my hands.
Okay, then I'll fight without using my shirt.
I think you're missing the point.
Normally, I'd be disappointed that this game lacks a story mode, but since I won't be forced to play it, I'm actually very happy. The first two game modes are very self-explanatory. It's just you versus the computer or you versus a friend. You can basically think of these modes as the arcade modes. You just pick a character and start fighting, and that's it. You don't even get to pick the stage you fight on. But be careful if you enter into 2-player mode without actually having a second controller plugged in. You will get stuck on the character select menu and have to restart the game. In fact, there is no way to back out of a fight midway through. The pause menu is literally just that, a pause, with no options to restart or exit a fight. It traps you forever. Championship mode is the World Martial Arts Tournament, but for some explicable reason it can only be played with 2 players, which is great for people like me who have no friends. To start, you have to pick 8 characters, with the computer picking another 8 randomly, and then they are divided into brackets. I get if you were playing solo that this wouldn't work because you'd end up matching up with yourself, but why not just have a single player mode where you pick only one character? Yeah, it would be short, but it's better than nothing. Even if you don't have a second controller, you can still start up this mode. It's just half of the time you won't be able to do anything but watch one of your characters being demolished by the AI, or you demolishing one of your own characters. It's not even really worth playing because the fights just play out the same as in all the other modes. There is no ring out system, and even if you reach the end and become the martial arts champion, you don't even get anything.
You get nothing!
It just cuts back to the announcer that I can't understand and goes back to the title screen. Build up mode allows you to level up a character and increase their stats. You face off against other characters on the roster, all of whom have been assigned a level. When you level up, your character's health meter increases, they grow stronger than typical characters, their strength meter replenishes faster when you power up, and whatever move you use to defeat the computer becomes stronger. There are a total of 125 levels. Battles will become more difficult as you progress through the levels. This is also how you can unlock the extra 5 characters, if you can be bothered to do it this way. Or you can simply input the code on the title screen that the manual provides to unlock Kid Goku, Genius Turtle, Mega Goku, and Go Getter. Awesome looking animations will play, introducing each of the characters, which is honestly the best part about unlocking them. The title of the game will then change to Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Battle 27. The final mode is where you and another player can face off, using your own build-up characters, but you need 2 memory cards in order to access this mode. And that's it for the game modes. They all end up feeling about the same at the end of the day, just with slightly different presentation. If you don't like the core mechanics of the game, then there is no enjoyment to be found in any of these modes.
Time to end this. Gun, 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 I cannot miss. Jan, jan, byan, byan, in this ultimate battle.
Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Battle 22 is an absolute chore to play for more than 5 minutes. Never have I dreaded replaying a game for a retrospective as much as this one. It's slow and unresponsive, all of the game modes feel the same, it's ugly to look at, and if you have no one to play with, there isn't much content. There is a good variety of characters to choose from, but the gameplay is so bad that none of them are any fun to play as. This game is the ultimate disappointment, and it's even worse than I remember.
Would you like to play again? You have selected no.
Many people have suggested that I play Dragon Ball GT Final Bout. Some claimed it to be the worst Dragon Ball game ever, while others praised it, saying that it was a nostalgic game from their childhood.
Yeah, so those latter people, I would not let them into your house.
Dragon Ball GT Final Bout is definitely up there with the worst of the worst when it comes to the franchise, and I am glad that I was never subjected to this game in my childhood. I had suffered enough with Ultimate Battle 22. In fact, Final Bout and Ultimate Battle 22 share many of the same flaws that ruin the gaming experience. They're like some sort of demonic twins.
What the heck?
Dragon Ball GT Final Bout was released in 1997 for the PlayStation 1. In Japan and Europe, the game is known as Dragon Ball Final Bout. I'm not sure why the North American version added the GT, as Dragon Ball GT had only been out for a year in Japan when this game was released.
But in New Zealand, I don't think it aired until like 2003, or was it 2004? I can't remember, but it was definitely way after 1997.
So for those of you who played this game back in the day, did you know what GT was?
That mustache has got to go. It makes you look like a total geek. It makes you look like a total geek. Total geek. Total geek. Total geek. Total geek.
The game begins with a beautifully animated 2D opening, all in the style of the GT anime series. To be honest, I'm not a fan of the GT anime, but I love the animation style. The first half of the opening features mostly just Dragon Ball Z villains and characters, apart from Goku, who is in his GT attire. Given the game's title, you'd think there'd be more emphasis on the GT characters, but they don't appear until the latter half of the opening. Although, as previously stated, the original name is simply Dragon Ball Final Bout.
So it makes sense.
Except for the music, the Japanese opening is identical. The Japanese version features The Biggest Fight, a song written specifically for the game and sung by Hironobu Kageyama. The American version is instrumental and the sound effects have also been removed. Aside from this opening, the music in the game is probably the best part. The tracks have a nice energy to them and do their best to elevate the action. Final Bout has a very typical 90s localization, with the translation being a little off in a lot of areas, but not unreadable, just not the best. Some of the characters' names aren't what we've come to expect, such as Kid Goku being called Little Goku. Instead of being referred to as Super Saiyans, some characters are just given the moniker Super in front of their names, but then others are called Super Saiyans. It's a bit inconsistent. And like in Ultimate Battle 22, Boo is spelt as Boo, a scary ghost. The character portraits that pop up before a match are really cool looking. The voices that accompany them are not what I was expecting.
Now, should I clean the trash of the universe?
They aren't the Funimation cast or the Ocean dub. They are, well, I have no idea. I don't think they are credited anywhere. The voices aren't bad, they're just very different. Vegeta sounds quite regal.
Alright, I'm going to destroy you, Kakarot.
GT Trunks sounds like he's over 35.
I don't have time to waste here.
And Goku sounds, well...
Ah! Hurry up and show me your real strength!
Yeah, annoying. The game does not always use English voiceovers. They are used only during character selection and at the beginning and end of a fight. The rest of the time they revert to Japanese. The backgrounds are very simplistic and plain. They don't look that great, but at least it helps the characters to stand out. The only interesting stage is the one with the lightning. It's very atmospheric. The character models are really blocky. It was very much a product of its time. 3D models in games were still relatively new in 1997, and this is the first Dragon Ball game to include them. The models remind me a lot of the Final Fantasy VII models. Given the limitations, they did manage to at least make the models look like the characters they are supposed to be. They honestly don't look that bad, just a bit dated. Probably the worst looking is Cell. He just looks really stiff and moves really stiff. In fact, everyone moves in a really stiff way. The in-game animations are subpar at best, and definitely contribute to the bad game feel that plagues this title.
where do I begin?
Dragon Ball GT Final Bout feels bloody awful to play. The basic controls are straightforward. The D-pad can be used to move forwards and backwards, but the default movement speed is extremely slow. If you want to move faster than a snail, then you need to use the L1 and R1 triggers to dash forwards and back. There are dedicated punch, kick and key buttons, as well as a guard that never seems to work. All of these controls can be found in the configuration menu and are easily figured out by fiddling around for a while. However, this is the only information about the controls provided by the game, at least in the game itself. Yes, this is one of those games where you absolutely must have the manual to learn how to play. There is no tutorial or combo list to help you learn how to play. Instead, there is a training mode hidden within the options menu for some reason. And this mode is very basic. It's just an arena where you can fight other characters who don't fight back, don't move, don't guard, and don't even get back up after being knocked down.
He's already dead.
I ended up going online and finding the manual, which actually tells you how to play, although it still does not list all of the combos. But just because I had a better understanding of the game and could use the combos now, didn't make it any more enjoyable to play. The input delay is appalling. To perform special key attacks and melee combos, you must use the correct button sequence and have the right timing. However, due to the game's lag, you'll frequently find yourself failing to execute them. A lot of the time, I couldn't even tell whether I was pressing the wrong buttons or if my timing was just off due to the unresponsive controls. It's difficult to have fun when the game treats your inputs as suggestions rather than commands. The hit detection is also terrible. Frequently it appears that an attack should have landed but does not. It is at its worst when fighting against a smaller opponent and when flying. Fighting in the air is the worst. The hit detection is worse, the controls are worse, and the camera is worse. If you hit your opponent back hard enough, the camera will follow them, making your character go off screen, meaning that you can't see what you're doing. And it does it all the time. I tried to avoid flying at all costs. The HUD includes a health bar as well as a key gauge. When you use key attacks, the key gauge is depleted. You can manually refill it by holding down the guard and punch buttons. Above these bars there are two settings, Meteor and Demo. Meteor Smash is a series of attacks that can be chained together up to a maximum of 10 times. At least I think 10 is the max. That's what the manual implies anyway. For the meteor attack to continue, you must press a specific button combination. Your opponent can respond by entering the appropriate counter move at the right time. It's similar to Dragon Rush in some ways, but much more confusing and difficult to grasp. But one advantage this game has over Budokai 3 is that you can disable this feature. The demo allows you to see special knockout tricks, which are powerful ki blasts like the iconic Kamehameha. When using these attacks, your opponent can counter them by launching their own ki blast, guarding, or deflecting it. In order to perform any of these counters, the correct button must be pressed before the word counter disappears. However, it does not always appear to work properly. Guarding seemed to be the most consistent, but getting the other two methods to work is a bit of a crapshoot. None of these features appear to be particularly bad on their own, but the game's extremely sluggish controls make performing any of these mechanics a complete nightmare. You have to wait 2 seconds for your character to register your move, and the hit detection is terrible, resulting in you whiffing.
Get off my head, I'm trying to concentrate!
When it comes to game modes, Final Bout has few options. There are only 3 if you exclude the training mode I mentioned earlier. Battle mode is essentially an arcade mode in which you can play against the computer or another player. When playing against the computer, it will choose a character at random, even if you haven't unlocked them yet. You can have as many continues as you want in this mode, so it eventually becomes a war of attrition. If you make it through all of the rounds, you will be able to fight Super Baby in his Great Ape form, during which the camera has a mental breakdown because it doesn't know what to focus on. What the hell is even going on? These next 2 modes are nearly identical to those found in Ultimate Battle 22. Build-up mode allows you to fight different tiers of opponents while improving your character's stats. The stats that are improved are determined by how you fight. You can save your character's progress to a memory card and bring it to a friend's house to fight with, if your friend is just as sadistic as you are. This is the only way to save any characters you've unlocked, because when you reset the game you lose all of your unlocked characters. This is probably why they have codes to unlock all of the characters, otherwise it would be extremely annoying. There are only 17 characters in total, with 5 of them being different Gokus and 3 of them being different Trunkses. You'll want to use the unlockable characters because they are far more powerful than the others, especially Super Saiyan 4 Goku. His regular attacks do more damage than other characters' special moves. The final mode is Tournament Mode, which, like Ultimate Battle 22, can only be played with 2 players. You could play it by yourself, but you'll just be beating up a character who can't fight back. And what do you get for winning a tournament?
You get nothing!
There's also a version of where you can use your build-up character in a tournament. The game modes are very underwhelming. They all feel pretty much the same to play, and there is no story mode to play through. If you're like me and absolutely hate the gameplay, then this game has nothing to offer, apart from the opening animation. That's pretty cool. I can't decide whether or not this game is worse than Ultimate Battle 22 or not. They share so many of the same problems, with their terrible controls and lack of engaging game modes. They also share the same strengths, with both having good music and an awesome opening animation. I guess the one advantage Final Bout has over Ultimate Battle 22 is that it did not cause me childhood trauma.
Remember when you were a kid and you were really dumb? Yep, this is one of those stories. One day I was at my local warehouse. For those of you who aren't Kiwis, which is all of you, the warehouse is a large retail store in New Zealand. It's like Walmart, but...
Be interested in our new winter duvet inners that we just got in?
Oh wow, they're great price.
It's like Walmart. Anyway, I'm getting off track. I was at the warehouse one day when I noticed a game in the clearance section. The game in question was Dragon Ball Z: The Legacy of Goku for the Game Boy Advance. I had to get it because I was a huge Dragon Ball Z fan, and it was only $9.97. Now, as a dumb kid, I didn't have the insight to question why it was so cheap and why there was still a bunch of them sitting in the clearance bin, because there was a reason. Oh yes, a very good reason. This game had brought on a feeling that I had never experienced before in my life, and that was buyer's remorse. So, is this game as bad as I remember? Probably. Dragon Ball Z: The Legacy of Goku was released in 2002 for the Game Boy Advance. Developed by Webfoot Technologies, it was somehow able to spawn 2 sequels, The Legacy of Goku 2 in 2003, followed by Boo's Fury in 2004. The game is an action-adventure title with RPG elements. We'll be playing as Goku and going through various parts of the Saiyan and Frieza sagas. And now that we've gotten that out of the way, let us begin. Booting up the game, we are greeted with a delightfully compressed abridged edit of the Rock the Dragon opening. Unfortunately, the music isn't the same. I would have loved to have seen, well I guess here, a recreation of the epic Rock the Dragon score using the Game Boy Advance's CPU soundscape. However, I really like the opening theme. It fits in nicely with the visuals and doesn't sound out of place. Despite how pixelated it is, at the time I thought it was really impressive to see a scene on the Game Boy. Who am I kidding? It looks like shit. It's odd that they included the title reveal with Trunks, given that this game only goes up to the Frieza saga. Oops. The main menu is very simple. The options menu is very simple. There isn't much to discuss here, so let's just get started with a new game.
Our story begins with our humble hero, Goku. It has been a long time since he has last seen his childhood friends, and so he has decided to meet with them at the house of his old martial arts master. Coming along with him is his young 6-year-old son, Gohan.
Okay, stop. Now, I'm fairly certain that the opening animation is wrong. Gohan was around the age of 3 or 4 at the start of Dragon Ball Z, not 6. I'm not sure why they didn't check this. It's such an easy fix too. Regrettably, this is only the beginning of inaccuracies. We start our journey on Master Roshi's charming little island. Our first objective in the game is to locate Master Roshi's porno magazines. I'm just imagining what the developer meetings were like.
Okay, guys. So how do we want to start off this E for Everyone title that will appeal to the kids?
There are 3 magazines in total to be found on the island. What's more strange about these magazines is that one of them appears to have Bulma on the cover, and the other seems to have Goku's wife Chi-Chi on the cover.
I better keep Gohan from seeing this magazine.
Yeah, you better. It'd be like discovering your mother's OnlyFans account. The last magazine can be found on the floor of the house. Returning all 3 to Roshi will cause Raditz to arrive on the island.
I can't believe this is happening! Oh man! What?
There you are, Kakarot.
Who is Kakarot?
You are, of course. You're not from this planet. You are a Saiyan warrior, like me, your brother.
A Saiyan? Your brother? I don't believe you.
You were sent here as a child to cleanse this pitiful planet of these humans, but somehow you've forgotten who you really are.
It must have happened when you hit your head as a child. Oh my! I would never do anything to hurt people. This is my home, and these are my friends.
I see you have become soft. Perhaps your son will make do in your place.
What? Gohan, no!
No.
Daddy!
When it comes to storytelling, this game has the same problem as Budokai 3, but it's even worse here. The story in this game is so truncated and yet so full of filler that it is barely coherent. If you have no prior knowledge of the Dragon Ball Z story, then good fucking luck trying to follow this. Raditz kidnaps Gohan, and Piccolo appears, offering to work together to stop Goku's brother.
It's me, Piccolo. Calm down. I'm not here to fight you.
Huh? Why are you here then, Piccolo? We have enough to worry about.
That guy who was just here, I met him earlier. I think he's much more powerful than both of us, Goku. I suggest a truce. We can settle our own differences later.
Why should we trust you?
Because he is a bigger threat to me than you, Goku. Together, maybe we have a chance.
No way, Goku! Don't listen to him!
I'll go ahead without you. We can meet up later.
Us? A team? Sounds risky, but I like it. I'd better get going. I need to rescue my son. The fastest way to travel is Nimbus!
Goku arrives at his residence. What? Yeah, this game does that thing where something urgent is happening, but then you get sent off to pick some flowers and find a cat and grab this boat. You know, just random shit like that. Hello, your son has been kidnapped. We don't have time for this shit. Like, why are you talking to Yamcha? Like, come on. He's not gonna help. But really, this is all just to extend the game's length. And even with the filler, the game can be beaten in only a few hours. Even for a GBA game, that's really short. So here we are at Goku's house, and there isn't much we can do in this area. We can talk to Chi-Chi, who is hiding in the trees for some reason, and then we never see her again.
I have no idea how you're still married.
This game does it a lot with its characters. You'll see a familiar face, talk to them, and then that's the end of it. They put in the effort to create these sprites, but then they do nothing with them. They merely serve as experience dispensers. Now, when it comes to the sprites, they look pretty good. You can tell who they're supposed to be right away. The designs use the chibi style, which involves giving the sprites large heads and eyes. Now, I'm not a big fan of this look, but it works well here. We must keep in mind that this is a Game Boy Advance game, and the screen of this handheld has a resolution of only 240 by 160 pixels. Despite the small screen real estate, the chibi designs allow the characters to be instantly recognizable as well as expressive. While the overall sprites are quite nice, the character portraits used for dialogue can range from hilariously bad to terrifying. A lot of them look like they've been ripped from a different game. Honestly, you could say that about a lot of this game. It looks like a bootleg game, but it isn't. This is an officially licensed Dragon Ball Z game. Believe it or not. We head into the forest and... This game is hard. You should save frequently. Goku attacks in two ways, punching and ki blast. The punch is awful to control. It feels really stiff with piss poor damage and piss poor range. You can't move diagonally, so you can't attack diagonally either. So in order for your punches to land, you must be practically on top of the enemy. Because you can attack from a distance, ki blasts are the safer option in early game. By pressing the button, Goku will launch a short range ki blast. Holding down the button causes Goku's blast to become more powerful and have longer range. Using a ki blast depletes your ki meter, which is displayed in the upper left corner above the health bar. Look at how quickly your health goes down. It's ridiculous. The most powerful man on earth has nothing on these wolves. God damn it. There is an inventory system that allows you to collect and use healing items such as herbs and senzu beans. You can carry a maximum of 6 herbs at once, and each will restore a quarter of your health. Senzu beans are a full heal, but you can only carry 3 at a time. However, the only sure way to survive in this harsh world is to engage in everyone's favourite activity, grinding. Yes, finally.
Don't get too excited.
You can gain experience in a variety of ways, completing side objectives, speaking with specific NPCs, and defeating enemies. When you gain enough experience points, Goku will level up, increasing both the amount of damage he can deal and the amount of damage he can take. Each enemy type gives a different amount of experience, and as you might expect, the harder enemies give a lot more. For example, if we kill this dinosaur, we will gain 600 experience, which is significant at this stage of the game. He takes a lot of hits to kill and deals a lot of damage. He can be a real challenge to take him out, unless you're like me and hide in the trees where he can't get me.
You're a monster!
After leveling up a bit, it becomes a lot easier to explore. We meet this old man who has a giant dinosaur skeleton in his house. He tells us he can help us find our son, but first we must do some side quests because otherwise the game will be too short. To stop the disturbance in the forest. Yes, that's what we're doing it for. The side content is mostly comprised of fetch quests. We need to get some flowers, then this boat, then a child. Da 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 da. A cat and some stones, some grass, some thrilling shit like that. Real heroic shit's happening in this game. During a couple of these side quests, we'll have to use one of the most recognizable elements of the Dragon Ball Z franchise, flying.
Right, I'm not messing about. This better be fucking good.
It's fucking crap!
This barely passes this flying. Why is everything in this game so shit? When you're flying, your flight meter will appear on the right. It measures it by displaying your maximum amount of flight time and how much time you have left. It drops as you fly. You must collect these orbs to refill it. Your maximum flight duration will increase as you level up. The only purpose of flight is to get up or across ledges. Even at a high level, the distance you can travel is so short that it's hardly worth using. Talking to this dinosaur, and yes, Goku can apparently talk to dinosaurs now. Well, I guess he could when he was a kid, but not that one. Or those ones. Or these snakes. Crabs.
Squirrel!
What was I even talking about? Oh yeah, talking to this dinosaur. Talking to this dinosaur, we are tasked with finding her missing egg. She claims a heartless monster stole it, but when we get to the area where the egg is, there's another dinosaur up there, which I'm pretty sure is the father. So we kinda had to solve this custody dispute by killing the father, as it always should be. Rated E for everyone. On the way back with the egg, we find Tien and Chiaotzu just chilling out under a tree in the deadliest forest known to man. Talking to Tien, he offers to help, but Goku tells him he needs to handle it on his own, which is a lie because Piccolo is already helping us. He just doesn't like Tien, he won't admit it. After returning the egg, we have completed everything in the forest and must now dawdle our way back to the old man's house. I say dawdle because I'm sure you have noticed that you can't run in this game. Goku cannot run. Our top speed is this jaunty little walk. The cynic in me wants to say it's because they want to pad out the game more, but honestly, I'm not sure why they decided to get allowing players to run. It's just another example of how inept this game is. The old man clears the way to the next area, where we can finally confront Raditz. Before we leave, he teaches us a new move, Solar Flare. Wait, what? Okay, so this game has some random old man teach us Solar Flare, and yet we have Tien standing out in the forest doing nothing. Why? They went to all this trouble to create a sprite for Tien, and yet he isn't even the one that teaches us Solar Flare. Solar Flare is Tien's signature move. What? I'm not even sure if the developers at this point even knew what Dragon Ball Z was. They should have just switched the old man and Tien's roles. Better yet, get rid of the old man entirely and use the time saved to program in a running animation. Why is everything in this game so shit? Despite the fact that the way you get Solar Flare is stupid, the move itself is not. It is a key move that when used will temporarily freeze enemies. After freezing the enemies, you can wail on them a bit before scurrying away. This cowardly technique is the most effective way to defeat most opponents, especially bosses. And while we're on the subject of bosses, we're about to meet our first one. The entire boss encounter and area is just poorly designed. If we want, we can just walk up to Goku. Come on Goku, just snatch him. There are healing herbs laid out everywhere and Piccolo is just standing there looking out into space. Don't expect him to help you with his fight because that would require programming, and this game ain't about that life. We approach Raditz, who won't do anything until we talk to him.
Give Gohan back to me, now! Are you prepared to join me? Come, Kakarot, we could rule the universe.
I mean, how do I pronounce 3 dots?
Like this, period, period, period.
Period, period, period. Your whole purpose in life is to conquer and destroy. We are Saiyans. It is in our blood. I may have been born a Saiyan, but that's not my purpose. Don't make this any more difficult. Very well, brother. Now you will see the wrath of a true Saiyan. It is a shame.
And then, as soon as the dialogue box disappears, he smacks us.
Oh, fuck. I can't believe you've done this.
The way boss fights play out is pathetic. You freeze them, take a few pot shots, run away because we're made out of paper mache, rinse and repeat until they die. Defeating Raditz does reward us with a decent amount of experience. The iconic special beam cannon scene is then reenacted, except that I killed him behind a rock so that we can't see everything. Sorry. I ain't playing this again to get different footage. Like, that's just what you're getting.
Ah, don't be a fool, brother. His blast will kill us both. If that's what it takes to save this planet, I'm ready. Special beam cannon!
Goku dies for the first time ever. Yep, he's definitely not died before this point. Nope, definitely not to wolves or anything. That would just be ridiculous. Goku is sent to the afterlife, where Kami greets us, but he has some bad news for us.
That was a brave sacrifice you made, Goku.
I would do anything for my son, Kami.
You saved not only Gohan, but perhaps everyone else on Earth. But all is not well.
What is wrong?
As we speak, 2 more Saiyan warriors are on their way to Earth. They are coming to get the Dragon Balls so that they may gain eternal life. But your friends are collecting the Dragon Balls so that they can wish you back to Earth in order to protect it once again. Go to the end of Snake Way and train with King Kai. He will make you powerful enough to face these new foes.
On my way. This door doesn't lead to Snake Way.
Snake Way is long and boring, kinda like my videos. It's nothing more than a long winding path with nothing on it, with the exception of one fight with Princess Snake. She's just chilling in the middle of the road, probably because she's had enough of her opulent palace, which isn't in this game at all. Too much programming for that. This fight is just so low effort and has no context to it. I don't know why they even bothered including it. It's just filler. Continuing down the path, Goku suddenly loses his balance, even though the screenshot makes it look like he was hit by a car. Goku plummets all the way to hell. I mean HFIL. You might have missed it on the title screen, but this game is based on the anime's Funimation dub. It was changed to HFIL due to FCC regulations prohibiting the use of the word hell in Saturday morning children's programming. Yay, censorship. My When asked about this edit in a 1997 interview with American Magazine, Funimation producer Barry Watson said,
To be honest, that Home for Infinite Losers was about the best we could do. Something you have to realize is that to eliminate something like that, there are 30 frames for every second of animation. Our painters have to work through about 15 to 20 minutes of footage, so you're talking about literally tens of thousands of cells to clean up. We do try our best to keep to the spirit of the original animation and to keep in line with a lot of the Japanese spirit of the show.
I find this change to be stupidly charming. Yeah, it isn't true to the original source material, but neither is anything else in this game. Hell, I mean HFIL,
Home for Infinite Losers.
has lots of these cloud enemies floating around, and they are damaged sponges. Even with my grinding, they take an eternity to kill. I eventually gave up and just avoided them entirely. This level is tedious and desolate. We speak with the red guy who challenges us to catch him, and then he vanishes. Cool. In order to escape, we must find 3 spirits and bring them back to this guy at the Health and Fitness Center. The appearance of the spirits is the most perplexing aspect of this mission. The character portraits resemble little ghosts, but the overall sprites resemble the cloud enemies. The only visual difference is that they aren't moving. There are a total of 3 of them to find. There are also these blue flames and distinct patterns on the ground that look important, but they're not. There's also this blood fountain in the middle of the level, also not important. Looks cool though. I'd love a blood fountain. Maybe it's actually just tomato sauce. Tomato sauce fountain. A tree with a fruit is blocked by a barrier, so we aren't able to get to it. But after collecting all these spirits, the barrier is dispelled so we can grab it. The red guy reappears and throws us through the portal, returning us to the beginning of Snake Way. Yay! So we must retrace our steps down the path. Snake Way's layout in this game simply does not convey its extreme length well. When you see too much of it on the screen at once, it appears condensed and small. The second time through, there are all these flight orbs scattered around, so we are able to proceed a lot quicker. Even though in the anime there were these hands that would reach out and pull Goku down if he tried to skip sections. But I guess they forgot about that part. I also think they might have forgotten to actually watch the anime altogether, because a lot of this is not in it. Finally we reach the end, and we can begin our training with King Kai.
Are you King Kai?
Well, of course I am. Do you see any other Kais around here? I didn't think so.
Okay. Well, can you train me to defeat the Saiyans who are approaching Earth?
Saiyans, eh? There aren't many of them left in this universe. Their whole planet was destroyed, but the ones who survived are extremely powerful. You'll have to train hard.
Thank you, King Kai.
First, let's see how well you can run on this high-gravity planet. Chase Bubbles and try to catch him. If you do, we can move on to the next test.
Sounds easy enough.
Go, Bubbles!
For the first stage of our training, we must catch Bubbles, which, like in the anime, is far more difficult than it appears, given that we can't fucking run.
Well done! Now you must hit Gregory on top of his head with this heavy mallet. Don't go easy on him because he is a flying cricket.
We manage to corner him under this tree and bash his skull in. And so, our training with King Kai comes to an end, and we learn a new technique, Kaioken. No, Kamehameha. Wait, what? Goku doesn't learn the Kamehameha from King Kai, he learns it way before. Fuck it. Goku is wished back to life, and we arrive at Kami's lookout.
Oh my god.
Maybe it's just his overworld sprite that looks this freak.
You're looking very fit, Goku. I'm really worried though. These Saiyans are true monsters. Be careful.
Don't worry, Mr. Popo, and thanks.
This is the first and final time we will visit this level. Some poor level designer spent hours painstakingly recreating Kami's lookout, and we're only here for about a minute. There's a lot of this in this game. They go to all this trouble to create these areas and sprites, only to never use them. It's truly bizarre. It feels rushed while also being painstakingly detailed. You can tell that some of the people who worked on this game genuinely cared about it. It's just a shame they had to care about this nonsense. We fly down to the snowy area. Apart from rescuing this little boy and fighting this dinosaur, there isn't much to do in this area. It's an excellent opportunity for us to put our new move to the test, the iconic Kamehameha.
It's fucking crap!
And it's not even blue like in the anime. It's yellow like in the manga. Like, which continuity are we doing here? Are we doing our own continuity? Are we doing the anime? Are we doing the manga? Who fucking knows? As we enter the city, we talk to this little girl who is very interested in the stock market.
I wonder how the stock market's doing today. Do you like my girl voice? I just like to hang out at the mall and do my nails.
Honestly, I've given up at this point. Walking around the city, the residents appear to be very concerned about something. But what exactly? This part of the game is extremely perplexing. So there's apparently a bank robbery going on, and these guys here who are aimlessly wandering around are the robbers. It's puzzling because they simply ignore you, even if you walk right up to them. They don't even acknowledge you. They barely fight back when you attack. It's all very confusing. To get to the next boss encounter, we need to pass through this military checkpoint. It feels like it's from a different game.
So this is Kakarot, eh? Doesn't look too tough to me. I sense Kakarot's power has grown since Raditz was here. You should be able... I sense Kakarot's power has grown since Raditz was here. You should still be able to handle him easily, though, Nappa. I'll crush the little traitor, Vegeta.
Is that him? This is the whole thing?
Both the boss fights with Nappa and Vegeta follow the same pattern as the Raditz fight. Get a few hits in and then scurry away while your friends and family do nothing to help you.
What do you even do?
Defeating Vegeta causes him to change into his Great Ape form.
Since you don't have your tail, wouldn't expect you to know the form of a true Saiyan. Only the sight of a moon will reveal it. Watch and learn, weakling.
But don't get too excited, because this isn't some epic boss fight. It's just a cutscene. Yajirobe appears out of nowhere and slashes off Vegeta's tail, restoring him to normal. It would be extremely bewildering if you had never seen this part of the anime before. They didn't even bother making Yajirobe a sprite. It only displays this horribly pixelated screenshot.
Hey, Yajirobe is here. He cut off Vegeta's tail. It's about time he did something useful.
Look, he's transforming back to normal.
No, this isn't possible. My tail! Let go, Yajirobe.
Without his tail, Vegeta can't transform anymore.
Gohan? Oh no, Gohan is beginning to transform now too.
Sorry, took it too far there. Ignore the coughing. Your time's at an end, okay, motherfucker?
Wow, Gohan sure did a number on Vegeta. We need to kill Vegeta now that he's vulnerable. Stop! Don't do it, Krillin! That's not the way to end this! But Goku, after all he's done to our friends, you're not just gonna let him get away. I don't feel right about this, Krillin. We need to show him mercy. Okay, Goku, I just hope we don't end up regretting this. I've somehow been defeated by this common Saiyan. I'll have my revenge once I recover from this. Perhaps I'll go back to Namek and collect the Dragon Balls there. Then eternal life and limitless power will be mine.
Are you sure you transcribed that right? What does it say? He is run away?
He is run away!
Sure, he ran away?
Where are you reading? I can't
He is run away. That's what it says. That's like... So I was like, did you make a typo?
Vegeta makes his escape and rockets off to Namek, with Goku following soon after. And no, I did not edit that, it just hard cuts to this level. This is, believe it or not, the game's final level. Remember when Goku had to find 3 ancient artifacts and make his way through an ancient temple on Namek? Yeah, that was pretty great. This temple is a chore to navigate. It doesn't give you much guidance as to what you should do. There are enemies everywhere, as well as a slew of teleporters that lead nowhere. When you reach the center, you must place the 3 gems around the Guru statue. It will pave the way for the next round of boss battles against the Ginyu Force.
We are the Ginyu Force!
And it is so lame. Everyone is just wandering around the area. There is no sense of immediacy or threat. We simply use the same strategy as we have for all the other boss fights. Once we've defeated all the members, we can proceed to the ultimate bad guy, Frieza.
Hello, allow us to introduce ourselves. My name is Frieza, and we're a traveling improv group.
The path to Frieza's ship is very straightforward. We just need to fly over a few small islands while defeating Frieza's minions. I know it appears that I'm rushing through this section, but the game doesn't change much from stage to stage. This game is severely lacking in variety. Frieza's ship is surrounded by enemies you can farm for experience. and then we can board his ship through the roof. Oh yeah, and Vegeta is on our side now, in case you didn't pick up on that. I mean, who really cares at this point? The game certainly doesn't. Despite the fact that there isn't much to do on the ship, it's still quite large. It has an armory as well as a viewing room where you can exit the ship and do some more grinding if necessary. Once again, you can see the level designer's efforts, but there is simply no content for it. We've passed the point of no return. The final boss will be triggered once we enter the rejuvenation chamber. Oof, and another jarring cut.
So this is the little monkey who seeks to spoil my plans. After I've put you down, I'll find another way to gain immortality through the Dragon Balls. I cannot be defeated.
The final boss, like most of the game's elements, is underwhelming. There's no special strategy for defeating Frieza. It proceeds in the same manner as the other boss fights. The only difference is that Frieza's transformation will take place gradually throughout the fight.
Congratulations, Saiyan! You've actually pushed me to my next form! Prepare for a true battle now! Wipe that smirk off your face, monkey! My third form is far more powerful than this one! Behold! I'm impressed! It looks like you will be the first to witness my final and most awesome form! Do you realize now that you can't win? Don't listen to him, Goku! You can do it! I've had enough of your mouth, little one!
Oh, fuck nuggets.
Krillin, no!
That's not funny.
How dare you, Frieza? You pushed me too far now. I've become a Super Saiyan. Your time here is at an end. Super or not super, you are taking your last breaths, monkey. This planet is breaking under the stress of our battle. Die!
And then Goku eventually transforms into a Super Saiyan. I suppose it's cool that the stage morphs into a destroyed version of Namek. It helps to sell the strengths of these two combatants during the fight. How am I kidding? It looks like shit. The fighting system is just too simple to bear any resemblance to the spectacle of these battles. And with that, Frieza has been defeated and the game is over.
Beaten. Monkey. Ow. At least I die knowing that you will go with this planet's destruction.
Live or die, I can rest knowing that your evil stops here.
This game, as I mentioned near the beginning of this retrospective, is extremely short. Even if you complete all of the side content, you should only need a little more than a couple of hours to complete the game.
The evil tyrant Frieza was defeated at the hands of Goku, the legendary Super Saiyan. Back on the planet Earth, Goku's friends used the power of the newly restored Dragon Balls. Oh, fucking goddammit. Back on the planet. Shush. I have to wait for you to be quiet so I can go. Alright.
Back on the planet Earth, Goku's friends use the power of the newly restored Dragon Balls to wish all of Frieza's victims back to life. The Namekians, now on Earth and without a world of their own, wonder what the future will hold for their people.
This game is a far cry from the exciting action-filled adventure that Dragon Ball Z is known for. The battles aren't fun, over-the-top airborne fistfights that you expect from the series. They're all been reduced down into very bland and tedious ground-based affairs. Battling enemies is both frustrating and boring, thanks to the touchy hit detection and extremely repetitive fights. Characters move around in bland 3-frame cycles, and enemy deaths are just as uneventful. Yeah, there are some scenes from the show included, but they don't make the action any more exciting or interesting. They're just there. If you're new to Dragon Ball Z, you'll be perplexed to what even the heck is even going on. It has sloppy setups and transitions, and there is no elaborate sequences to demonstrate the passage of time. You just kind of appear in new locations. It's kind of jarring and confusing. Since the game is all taking place from Goku's perspective, it is very limited in scope. Now, I've made it no secret that I'm not a fan of Goku as a character,
because he's a piece of shit father and a terrible grandfather, and he sucks and he's stupid and I hate him.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
But the thing is, in this game, he isn't really much of a character at all. And that is this game's biggest flaw. It completely fails to capture the essence of the anime or manga. The entire experience feels like a bootleg game you'd find at a garage sale for 50 cents. A legacy is something that is left behind to be remembered by, but I think this legacy is something we'd all like to forget. That's it.
If there is one thing that defines gaming publishers, it's greed. And few companies embody that relentless, all-consuming hunger for profit quite like Atari in the early 2000s.
Hello, I like money.
Dragon Ball Z was a goldmine, and they knew it. The Budokai series was flying off the shelves, and DBZ was at the height of its Western popularity. But for Atari, that wasn't enough. It's never enough. They wanted more. More games, more sales, more cash. Quality be damned. And so, Taiketsu was born. Not out of passion, not out of creativity, but out of corporate desperation. Webfoot Technologies, the small studio behind the Legacy of Goku series, was already hard at work on their RPG sequel when Atari shoved another project onto their plate, a fighting game. Two vastly different games, both expected to be delivered within months of each other. A team that was already stretched thin now had to scramble to make it work. And the result? Taiketsu. A game so rushed, so fundamentally flawed, that even its own developers want to forget that it ever happened.
It never happened.
But Taiketsu is more than just a bad Dragon Ball game. As a product of unchecked greed of a company that saw a money-printing franchise and demanded more, without a second thought for those actually making the games and for the fans that were expected to play them. It's a case study in what happens when the pursuit of profit comes before the pursuit of quality. And if you've never had the misfortune of playing it for yourself, well...
If you want to know one thing, this right here is cancer.
Just one look at a screenshot of Dragon Ball Z Taiketsu, and you already know something is very, very wrong.
Hello. Yuck, what the fuck?
But even the most cursed image imaginable can't fully prepare you for how bad the game actually feels to play. And in a fighting game where tight controls and responsive mechanics are everything, that's an instant death sentence. Released in 2003 for the Game Boy Advance, Taiketsu was developed by Webfoot Technologies. As I just said before, they are also the creators of the Legacy of Goku. And if you have already seen my retrospective on that game, you'll know that it's fucking crap! But credit where it's due, Webfoot managed to turn things around with the Legacy of Goku 2, a legitimately great Game Boy Advance title. Probably one of the best Dragon Ball games in my opinion. So they can make good games, if they're given the chance. And in Taiketsu's case, they definitely were not. This is one of the instances where the development behind the game is a lot more interesting than the game itself. After you realize the development hell that Taiketsu went through, you almost want to excuse it from how bad it is. Almost.
Cancer.
Before we get into the catastrophe that is Dragon Ball Z Taiketsu, we need to talk about Dragon Ball Z Saiyans Smash. These two games share an unfortunate connection, one of wasted potential and abysmal execution. But if we're talking about which one suffered the worst fate, well, Saiyans Smash didn't even get the chance to be terrible. It never saw the light of day. Just weeks before Dragon Ball Z Budokai 2 dropped in late 2003, Atari announced Saiyans Smash is a brand new Dragon Ball Z title in development, slated for a mid-2004 release. It was rumoured to be an action RPG covering key events from the anime, set to launch on the PlayStation 2 and GameCube. But after the initial announcement, silence. Atari never followed up, never showed any gameplay, never released any trailers, just a whole lot of nothing. No official cancellation was ever issued, but it became painfully obvious that Saiyans Smash had been quietly scrapped. So what happened? Well,
No one really knows for sure. But the most common theory is that Saiyan Smash was reworked into Dragon Ball Z Sagas, which eventually released in 2005 on the same platforms, plus the original Xbox. And if you've ever played Sagas, you'll know that that's not exactly a happy ending. The poor Xbox, the only one it got. Atari's track record with Dragon Ball Z games was spotty at best, but Sagas was a special kind of disaster. A janky, repetitive, and barely functional mess that makes even the worst Budokai knockoffs look like masterpieces. If Saiyan Smash was anything like Sagas, its cancellation may have been a mercy killing. So where does Taiketsu fit into all this? Well, Webfoot was also involved in Saiyan Smash's development, or at least in creating assets for it. Since they had already worked up a bunch of 3D models for the project, Atari, ever the pinnacle of cost-cutting efficiency, decided to recycle those assets. But instead of a full-fledged console game, they were repurposed into Taiketsu, a 2D fighter for the Game Boy Advance. And that's how we ended up one of the most ugliest and ill-conceived Dragon Ball Z games of all time. Webfoot Technologies was never exactly on the cutting edge of game development. They weren't some industry titan pushing the limits of hardware. They were a modest team, mostly known for making low-budget games throughout the 90s. And for many of the developers on Taiketsu, this was their very first time working on a fighting game. And it shows. Like most licensed games in the early 2000s, Taiketsu was a rush job from start to finish, but Webfoot wasn't just dealing with the usual crunch. They had Atari as their publisher, and Atari, they saw DBZ games flying off the shelves and wanted more fast. They didn't care about quality, just that the next Dragon Ball title hit the market as soon as possible. The problem? Webfoot already had Legacy of Goku 2 in production. That meant they weren't just making one game, they had to deliver both an RPG and a fighting game within months of each other. Since Webfoot was still a relatively small studio, they had to hire additional staff to get Legacy of Goku 2 finished. But with Taiketsu suddenly added to their workload, the team was stretched even thinner. At first, Taiketsu was being developed by a separate team, while Webfoot focused on Legacy of Goku 2. But once that game wrapped up, Webfoot had to step in and finish Taiketsu themselves. On top of also working on Saiyan Smash, that meant a small, overworked team, many of whom had never made a fighting game before, had to scramble to complete a handheld DBZ fighter under insane time constraints.
Everybody calm down!
Honestly, I feel kind of bad for Webfoot. They never stood a chance. Atari set them up to fail, and it's no wonder the team pretends Taiketsu never existed. A lot of what Webfoot had planned for both these ill-fated titles was never even given the slightest chance to materialise. The developers may have had ambitions, but those ambitions were crushed under the weight of impossible deadlines and corporate indifference. In an interview with Chris London, the game's producer at Atari, he mentioned that Taiketsu was actually supposed to have some kind of connectivity with future GameCube titles. What title exactly? He never specified, but if I had to guess, it was most likely meant to link up with Saiyan Smash, a game that, much like Taiketsu's potential, never saw the light of day. And that sentiment radiates throughout the entirety of Taiketsu. The whole game feels unfinished, like a product that was meant to be more but never got the time, resources, or attention it needed. It's as if you're playing something that wasn't so much developed as it was extracted from the team at the last possible second. There's an overwhelming sense that things are just missing. Features that were planned but scrapped, mechanics that feel half-baked, and ideas that were thrown onto the cutting room floor before they could even be fully realised. It's not just that Taiketsu is a bad game, it's a very hollow game. A game that never got to be what its developers might have hoped for, instead left to exist as a cautionary tale of what happens when a publisher prioritizes greed.
Why make trillions when we could make billions?
A trillion is more than a billion, numbnuts.
Alright, zip it.
If there's one thing I can give to Taiketsu, and trust me, I really don't want to, it's that there is actually a decent number of modes that you can play. Webfoot at least tried to pad out the game's longevity with a handful of different ways to suffer through it. The main offering is your standard tournament mode, where you progress through a gauntlet of opponents before facing off against a final boss character. Beating the boss unlocks them for play, which is at least something to work towards, though the reward hardly feels worth the effort. There's also a small, borderline irrelevant bit of story attached to each character, but all you get is a lifeless text scroll at the end. So yeah, technically this could be considered the game's story mode, but that is being very generous. Beyond that, there are a few other modes: time challenges, endurance battles, and a training mode. Taiketsu even has a Z store where you can spend points to unlock extra modes and match modifiers like invisible fighters, unlimited supers, and one-hit knockouts. Credit where it's due, that's actually some decent features. And it even had 2-player link cable support, which, while completely useless now, was probably a decent inclusion at the time. On paper, there's stuff to do. The problem? You actually have to play the game to do it. And that's where the real pain begins. Let's address the massive elephant in the room. This game looks uniquely awful. It is, without exaggeration, one of the ugliest Dragon Ball games ever made. Maybe even just games in general. The proportions are completely wrong. Every character has short, stumpy arms, bloated heads, and awkward, stiff poses. You can tell who everyone is, but this is probably the least appealing any of them have ever looked. Even those cursed Funko Pops managed to have more charm than these sprites. And the worst part, this wasn't even intentional. This was a shortcut. The sprites were created using pre-existing 3D models, likely from Saiyan Smash, which were then rendered in the Donkey Kong Country style. In theory, this technique can work, but here, it's a total disaster. The devs clearly had zero time to clean up the renders, so the characters just look off. And the way they move, somehow even worse. The animations are stiff, janky, and lifeless, making every action feel sluggish and awkward. The controls are unresponsive, adding another layer of frustration to an already painful experience. Taiketsu boasts a roster of 15 characters, though you'll have to slog through the tournament mode to unlock them all. And to be fair, the selection is actually pretty solid. There's a nice mix of heroes and villains, covering all the major players from the Z era. But here's the real kicker. Every single fighter plays pretty much exactly the same. There are no unique kicks, no distinct special moves, just the same stubby punches, the same laughably awkward leg sweep things or whatever the hell that is, and the same stiff uppercut across the entire cast. The only thing that differentiates them is their supers, and even those feel terrible to use, thanks to the game's choppy animations and unresponsive controls. It's like Webfoot tried to make a fighting game, but forgot that part of what makes fighting games fun is having actual variety between characters. And don't even get me started on the sky battles. You'd think a Dragon Ball Z game would nail the aerial combat right? Nope. Not here. It's just two characters awkwardly floating, sluggishly trading blows in a way that feels even less responsive than the already clunky ground combat. It's a gimmick that should have added depth, but instead it just makes fights even more of a chore. It just looks so stupid. But the bizarre design choices don't stop there. There are some straight up weird issues with the game's presentation. For starters, the character portraits are a mess. Cell and Broly are only playable in specific forms, yet their portraits don't even match the forms they actually fight in. It's the kind of sloppiness that makes you wonder if anyone at Webfoot actually had time to polish or even look at the final product before it was shipped. And then there's the sound, or rather, the lack of it. Characters make no noises when throwing out their signature attacks. No grunts, no energy blasts, just eerie, unnatural silence. Even when they're getting absolutely pummeled, they suffer in silence, like they've resigned themselves to their fate. And honestly, that just makes the whole experience even more depressing. Taiketsu might have a variety of modes to suffer through, but no amount of unlockable characters or gimmicky match modifiers can fix the fact that its core gameplay is a clunky, unresponsive disaster. What's the point of having multiple ways to play if every single one of them is miserable? At the end of the day, Taiketsu is a disaster, an awkward, clunky, barely functional attempt at a fighting game that never should have left the drawing board. And yet, it still managed to sell over 600,000 copies. Honestly, that number baffles me.
I can only imagine how many kids excitedly tore off the plastic wrap, popped the cartridge into their Game Boy Advance, and were met with this. No amount of childhood optimism could mask just how broken and lifeless the game truly is. And yet, I can't bring myself to fully hate it. After learning about the mess that was its development, I almost feel bad for Webfoot Technologies. They were stretched way too thin, trying to juggle multiple projects with little time or resources, all while Atari loomed over them demanding more. It was clear that Taiketsu was never set up to succeed. But feeling bad for the devs doesn't change the reality of the poor kids who got stuck with this game. They deserve better. Dragon Ball Z deserved better. And frankly, even Webfoot Technologies deserve better. But not Atari, fuck them, they can piss off.
It's hard to believe looking back at it now, but Dragon Ball Z Sagas was supposed to be this big thing, claiming to be a huge sandbox adventure. I mean, I guess this level has sand and this one has a phone box.
It goes where no Dragon Ball Z game has gone before. Everywhere. Introducing Dragon Ball Z Sagas, the first ever Dragon Ball Z action-adventure game.
What a crock of shit. If you couldn't already tell, this is going to be a very negative retrospective because I do not like this game. Like at all. I didn't like it as a kid and I definitely don't like it now. And I am going to show you exactly why. Dragon Ball Z Sagas was released in 2005 and was the first Dragon Ball Z console game developed by an American studio. And it shows. No, I'm kidding. Well, not really. Avalanche Studios was in charge of developing the game, which was published by Atari. So I would blame Atari, not the developers, for all this false advertising.
The first ever Dragon Ball Z action-adventure game.
Sure, Jan.
Sagas was released for the PlayStation 2, GameCube, and was the only Dragon Ball Z game to be released on the original Xbox.
That's rough, buddy.
My thoughts while watching the opening animation for Sagas are a mix of cool and... what? Some of these shots have amazing choreography, and the 2D animation is really fluid and looks great, but the art style is unusual. The characters are very different from what we are used to seeing. It's as if One Piece and Dragon Ball Z had a baby, which isn't far from the truth, as the animation supervisor responsible for this opening has worked on both the Dragon Ball Z and One Piece anime. I really don't mind how this looks, since the 2D opening is always appreciated. I adore the animation of Goku transforming into a great ape and destroying Pilaf's castle. It's a real treat to see some reanimated Dragon Ball scenes. The only thing I don't like is Vegeta's appearance. Not only does his face look odd, but his armor and hair are also the wrong colors. Or is his hair supposed to be brown? Because that seems to be a reoccurring thing in game openings. The openings of Budokai 2 and 3 both feature a brown-haired Vegeta. Yeah, it's a hard pass from me. When a level begins, the game will give you a list of objectives to complete before moving on to the next stage. These are usually simple things like collecting Dragon Balls or fighting the boss. You can check this list at any time by pausing the game. Sagas begins shortly after the arrival of Goku's older brother Raditz, who has kidnapped Goku's son Gohan. So it starts like pretty much every other Dragon Ball Z game. One feature that distinguishes this game from the others is the ability to pursue Raditz as both Goku and Piccolo. Yes, co-op is available in this game. It's like they say, sorrow shared is sorrow halved. Although in this case, I would say that it's doubled. Did you like that game?
No. Gotta be honest, I really did not.
The frantic pace at which the characters move around is awkward as hell to control. Imagine trying to steer a shopping cart across some slightly icy pavement. Look at my running.
Wow, it's even worse than... How is it worse?
It's not worse, it's the same.
No, it's worse.
It's I have the same.
No, I have poofy pants to hide it. See? Oh wait, what the fuck?
It takes some time for your character to gain enough speed to run, and once they do, they slide slightly when turning. The absurd running animation only adds to this. It doesn't help that everyone has very poor posture. This is Goku, the powerful savior of Earth, a skilled martial artist. Why is he hunched over like a gremlin? In fact, everyone looks like this. This is due to the fact that all of the characters have the same animations, even the majority of the enemies. Because they are all the same, everyone feels the same. The only distinction between characters is their unique special move, but even then they still do the same thing. Fighting enemies is the main thing you'll be doing as you progress through a level. To begin with, you will only be able to kick them, punch them, or ki blast them to death, and none of these actions feel good. The bad animations combined with the unresponsive controls cause you to miss half of your attacks, and there is such a delay between actions that the enemies can easily counterattack, and there's nothing you can do about it. But the most vexing aspect is when the game places enemies far away and out of reach, and they simply shoot you with ki blasts from afar. So you're getting shot at while being rushed by enemies because the AI's only strategy is to charge at you full force. When exploring the levels, and I use the term exploring very loosely as these levels are tiny, you will find Z coins, which act as the game's currency. These can be used to purchase upgrades at the Z stations scattered throughout the levels. When you activate one of these stations, it will refer to them as team upgrades, which seems like an odd wording choice. However, what it really means is that purchasing an upgrade for one character affects all characters. For this level, you must purchase the special move ability in order to destroy the rock that is blocking your path. You can use the special move to unleash a powerful ki blast, such as the Kamehameha. This is the only mandatory upgrade. Breaking through the rock will lead you to the game's first boss fight against Raditz. Boss fights, like most aspects of this game, are awkward and frustrating. Raditz will charge you immediately, and you would think, oh, the game just taught me about special moves. That must be what I need to use to win. But nah, he'll always teleport out of the way. What you are really meant to do is run around him while he slides along the ground and then spam punches and kicks until he dies. Because it is 2 against 1, this fight is a piece of cake in co-op. The AI has no idea who to pursue, so you can just have one player jump around while the other throws ki blasts at him. Piccolo then sends them to the other world via special beam cannon. I'll give this game credit for informing the player about what's going on between levels. While edited together clips of the anime play in the background, the narrator will summarize the events. It does a decent job of conveying the main plot points in a concise manner. However, I must deduct some points for the sound design. So you have the narrator talking, then the sound effects from the clips, sometimes a character is talking, and finally the game music.
Vows one day to return and finish the fight. In the battle's aftermath, the remaining Z fighters search. Shut up.
The soundscape is an absolute clusterfuck. It's like being at a party and you're just sitting in the corner of the room by yourself wishing you're at home playing video games. Just me. The following level has us playing as young Gohan, who is looking for the Dragon Balls in order to bring his father back to life. There are 8 Dragon Balls. No, there isn't. There are 7. Or maybe there's a hidden 8th Dragon Ball. If you find it on a Tuesday without taking any damage, then it unlocks a Super Saiyan 5 Goku. That is definitely some pre-internet playground rumor right there. Remember that? Remember when the internet was the thing and you didn't know? You're like, it could be true. It never was though. There are 7 Dragon Balls hidden around the level, and by hidden I mean lying on the ground. When you collect all 7,
you get
an everlasting gobstopper. You can suck it and suck it and suck it and never get any smaller.
You don't get anything extra from collecting them. They are just a requirement to finish certain levels. Cybermen are the enemies for this level. They are also in the previous level, which makes no sense because Vegeta and Nappa planted them on Earth. Yes, I am nitpicking, but I had to play through this game twice, so I think I've earned the right to nitpick a bit. Enemies typically appear in groups of 3 or 4, and the next wave of enemies will not appear until all of the first wave's enemies have been eliminated. You also are blocked by invisible walls until you defeat all of the enemies in the area, as Bulma loves to remind you.
Eliminate all enemies to advance!
Yeah, I'm fucking trying, woman.
Yellow Cybermen are the most vulnerable and can be killed in one hit. The real danger they pose is they will swarm you and then explode. Green Cybermen are stronger and will latch onto you when they explode.
Are you fucking that Cyberman?
I am. The red Cybermen are bloody annoying because they will spit acid at you from places out of reach. Actually, every enemy with any sort of projectile attack is infuriating to deal with. They always seem to hit you from off screen. When an enemy is off screen, there will be a portrait icon that will show up, giving you a rough idea of where they are and their health, but it honestly is not much help. Purple Cybermen can spawn other Cybermen, but they aren't as dangerous as they would seem because killing the purple Cybermen will kill any Cybermen it spawned. The giant Cybermen will also attack you with acid, but their attacks are much slower and easier to avoid. They have a shockwave that you need to watch out for, but other than that they aren't too bad. As previously stated, the enemy AI uses almost no tactics when fighting. They will simply attack you until you die, which is pretty much what you will be doing to the AI. The level concludes with a fight against Nappa, which like most fights in this game, is absolutely no fun at all. You have a chance of throwing or being thrown outside of the battle arena. An animation will play with the character flying back, but they always land right in front of the opponent, so you either instantly get hit again, or in co-op just glitch out and not be able to move, and the inability to move will become a recurring issue when playing with someone else. Nappa is about to kill young Gohan, but Piccolo, being the best dad that he is, sacrifices himself, giving Goku the extra time to arrive. Goku then easily destroys Nappa. Each level has its own title card, which looks extremely cheap. It has some default Photoshop style text superimposed over a screenshot. These range from awful to even more awful. Sagas claims to have 19 levels in total.
Sure, Jan.
But it counts this boss fight with Vegeta as a level, as well as a few other bosses. There are also some training mini-games later on in the game that count as levels too. Because this is its own level, there are collectibles strewn about the arena. So before you can defeat Vegeta, you must first run around in a circle while being shot at constantly. There are two kinds of capsules scattered throughout the levels. They can be found on the ground, in the sky, or within easily broken environmental objects. Each level has a set number, which you can see in the pause menu. Red capsules are the game's health pickups. They will heal a portion of a character's health when first picked up. There are 10 slots for them on the left side of the screen. Your objective is to collect 10 of these capsules in order to fill these slots. After collecting 10, your maximum health will be permanently increased. This applies to all characters, so getting a health boost for Goku will remain when playing as Gohan, and so on. The capsules you collect carry over to other characters, and you don't have to collect 10 in one level. The yellow capsules function pretty much the same, except that they increase your maximum amount of ki. Senzu beans can also be used to replenish your health after death. They are basically lives, and you can only carry 3 at a time. This fight plays out quite differently in co-op. Instead of having 2 characters and each player controlling one of the characters, you take turns controlling a single character, in this case Goku. However, each player retains their own health and ki bars. There is a timer in the top right corner that will count down until it reaches 0, at which point it will begin to beep and switch to the other player, even if you're in the middle of a combo or whatever.
Ow.
The game simply cannot handle the constant switching. It is extremely glitchy.
What the fuck is going on?
But we'll get into that a little bit later. After using the Kamehameha to defeat Vegeta off screen, Goku then uses the Spirit Bomb. And no, you do not get this move in game. It is cutscene only. Goku lets Vegeta escape, and because Piccolo got, that also means Kami got. And now the Earth's Dragon Balls have vanished. The Z-Fighters then travel to planet Namek in order to retrieve the Namekian Dragon Balls, which will be used to wish back those killed by the Saiyan invasion.
Is it dead?
When the Z-Fighters arrive on Namek, they find it under attack by Lord Frieza, who is looking for the Dragon Balls in order to wish for immortality. Furious at the prospect of Frieza's immortality, Vegeta too rushes to Namek, openly declaring himself an enemy of Frieza. With the Ginyu Force and Frieza on their tail, the Z-Fighters and Vegeta decide to join forces in order to increase their chances of obtaining the Dragon Balls. During this level, we will be playing as Vegeta, though it matters little who you play as because everyone just feels so awful to control. Henchmen are the level's enemies, but they can be defeated in the same way as any other enemy in the game, by spamming punches and kicks. There are combos you can buy, but they are mostly pointless because spamming is the most effective way to play. Snipers will land on ledges, which you must fly up to. The flying mechanics are pitiful. My camera is shaking. You can't just gain height whenever you want, as flying only works on the horizontal plane. To get higher in the air, you first must find a higher ledge, then climb it, and finally fly. This necessitates a significant amount of backtracking if you want to gather the collectibles that are high in the air, and the default flying speed is extremely slow, so you'll want to purchase an upgrade to make it less tedious. Everything is so sluggish, so slippery and unresponsive that playing is utterly exasperating. There is never a time where you can just immerse yourself in the game, because you're stuck in the mindset of thinking, why isn't this working? Why is my character sliding along the ground? Why are my attacks not landing? Why am I still playing this? This level requires us to locate all of the Dragon Balls and Dende before facing Raccoon. To use key attacks, you have to have enough ki. By manually powering up, you can fill up your ki gauge. This process can be sped up with an upgrade, which is one of the few worthwhile upgrades. When Vegeta uses his special move, he somehow is able to both grunt and call out the name of the attack at the same time. The sound design in this game is just really poorly done. Characters are frequently cut off in the middle of their sentences.
Shut up! Frieza has summoned.
The music is okay, but it doesn't suit the tone of what is going on at all. Everyone's dying. When Raccoon is defeated, the game advances to the next level, which features 3 boss battles. What did I say? It is every New Zealander's greatest fear, being attacked by a severely sunburnt Australian. Yeah, that's fair. Playing as Goku, we must fight against Jace and Berta, kind of at the same time. They will occasionally swap out when you reach a certain health thresholds. There is a glitch, or maybe it's a feature. It's kinda hard to tell with this game. If you do not finish a combo, your opponent will not recover and will essentially be stun locked. This works on every enemy in the game, even the bosses. But it doesn't really work for this boss fight, as you can get randomly rammed by either Jace or Berta, allowing them to break out of the death loop. When they are both defeated, the level actually continues and there is a small path for you to travel through that leads to the next boss fight. The environments in this game, while simplistic, actually look pretty nice. I mean, the layout and the level design is about as basic as it gets, but the art styles of the backgrounds do a good job of emulating the styles seen in the anime. Though the islands in the distance appear to just be copy-pasted. You're never gonna unsee that. I can't. The next fight is against Captain Ginyu, who likes to dig underground. You are able to lock onto enemies, and when you do this, the control scheme will change. All of your movements will be orientated to your target, and you will strafe rather than run. The strafe is meant to be used as a way to dodge attacks, but it's too short and slow, and it has no invincibility frames, so it doesn't really work. The only real use I found for the lock-on is for using key attacks, and for moving towards enemies off screen. When Ginyu is defeated, he does the old body swap shenanigans, and we have yet another boss fight. This time we are fighting as Vegeta again. It plays out like every other boss fight. The only difference is that Jace is just awkwardly watching in the background. Once you buy the teleport move, the boss fights become trivial. For a small amount of ki, you can teleport behind the opponent you are targeting, and just start stun locking them. Goku manages to get his body back, but is badly injured and needs time to heal. Vegeta must escort Dende to the Dragon Balls in order to summon Porunga, the Namekian dragon. Yay, an escort mission. My favourite. Goku, what do I say? Dende has no self-preservation skills. He will not stick close to you or hide. Instead, he will float in the middle of an open area, waiting for the enemy to come and kill him. If it weren't for the fact that the enemies were so focused on destroying you, then this would be even more annoying than it already is. The enemies that you need to keep an eye on are the snipers, as they will start shooting at Dende straight away, and Dende will make no attempt at getting away. One of the game's biggest flaws is its camera. As it's a fixed camera, you have no control over it. This is the main reason you'll miss items, because the game won't show them to you. It also makes the simple act of collecting items a nuisance, since your depth perception is all weird.
I just want to get the capsule, and it's like, fucking Jesus Christ.
Now take these issues and times them by 1,000 and add a few more, and that is what the camera is like in co-op. If one player is too far ahead or behind, it will push them to the edge of the screen. Sometimes it will just completely lose track of one of the players, or the worst possible outcome, teleport you.
Ow! Why am I teleporting? I can't move, I'm stuck. No, I literally can't move. Can you teleport me somewhere else?
When the game teleports you, there is a 50-50 chance that you will lose your ability to move. It is without a doubt one of the worst cameras ever, at least in co-op. In single player, it's pretty bad but manageable. In co-op, it's utter chaos. Porunga is summoned and they use their first wish to bring Piccolo back to life, allowing Kami to return to Earth, which also brings back the Earth's Dragon Balls, allowing the others to be revived with a wish. Piccolo requests the second wish to teleport him to Namek in order to exact revenge on Frieza for killing his people. As Vegeta, we must buy time until Piccolo arrives. This essentially entails flying in a circle for a few minutes, and when Piccolo does arrive, you don't even get to play as him. It simply bypasses the flight. What the hell? They clearly ran out of time here. Why would you have all this build up to a fight that doesn't even happen?
Piccolo, when did you come back?
Dragon Balls.
Oh, neat.
Frieza kills Krillin. Unlike with other boss levels, this one does not have any collectibles, so you can go straight to wailing on Frieza. Goku starts already in his Super Saiyan form, and while in this form you do significantly more damage than normal, and you move faster. A new meter below the key gauge has been added to the HUD. This meter is only available for those who can transform. When transformed, it will slowly drain, and once it's empty, you will revert back to a character's base form. Landing hits on enemies will slowly refill the meter again. But once it is filled, how do you transform again?
Turn Super Saiyan!
Well, the game doesn't actually tell you this, and I only figured it out by pressing every button, but to transform you have to hold down the power up buttons until the key gauge is filled, and then keep holding it still, and then you will transform.
Why won't you turn Super Saiyan? That's how you do it in single player.
You need to know this for this fight, because if Goku goes back to his base form, he can't deal any damage to Frieza. During my co-op playthrough, I think this fight was one of the most glitchiest fights I have ever experienced in any game ever.
What the fuck? Why do I start on the ground? Now I can't move!
This is another one of those boss fights where you switch between players. It started to really go south when I got stuck inside of Frieza.
He killed Krillin. He killed your friend.
What the fuck is going on? We'll see about that. I can't stop.
Now I didn't know it at the time, but this glitch had a much more detrimental effect than it just being funny. So while Goku got out of Frieza's body, his hitbox did not. Every time Frieza got hit, I got hit.
I kept, every time I hit him, I fall on the ground. See?
Yeah, I don't know, because it doesn't happen when I do it.
What is going on? Every time I touch him, I fall on the ground. What?
Just keep blasting. Just keep blasting.
Okay. I can't keep teleporting on the ground.
We'll
I fall over even when I do that.
Like I said before, Frieza will only take damage if Goku was Super Saiyan, and because I couldn't hit him without hitting myself, I could not build up the Super Meter, which means no Super Saiyan, which means I couldn't kill Frieza. Thank God Player 2 was able to finish him off.
Yes. Oh, thank God it's over.
Goku narrowly escapes planet Namek and lands on planet Yardrak. This game has a Yardrak saga, which I don't believe has appeared in any other Dragon Ball Z game. Certainly not in any of the ones I've played at least. Unfortunately, the entire saga is only one level, and it's a boss battle against this thing. Since there are unique enemies and environmental elements, it appears that there was intended to be more to this saga. I can't imagine they'll go to all this effort just for this. The game then moves on to the Trunks saga, covering the events of the history of Trunks OVA, roughly. In an alternate timeline, Goku dies of a viral heart disease 2 years after defeating Frieza and King Cold. Because Goku died of natural causes, he can no longer be resurrected with the Dragon Balls. Piccolo, Vegeta, Krillin, Tien, Yamcha and Chaozu are killed by androids 17 and 18, 6 months later. With the death of Piccolo, Earth's guardian Kami dies as well, and the Dragon Balls are rendered permanently useless, making it impossible for anyone to be revived. 13 years later, the androids terrorize the planet while Gohan, the sole survivor of the battle, tries in vain to stop them. He agrees to train Trunks, who is eager to help. Prototype androids are the new enemies for this saga, but they are just reskins of the henchmen enemies, animations and all. There are also these larger androids that are just the big Cybermen, but metal, and also spawn little baby metal things. We must keep an eye out for Goku's heart medicine, which I believe was hidden inside a car, so I'm fairly certain we stole someone else's medicine. Finally, we face off against Android 17, who has decided to cut the sleeves off his t-shirt. Somehow this little change in his character design makes him look 10 times worse. Even though we easily win due to the game's almost non-existent difficulty curve, the game has decided that we lost, and Trunks must be saved by Gohan, who ends up losing his arm.
Oh my god!
What do you know about reattaching arms? That I can't find.
Oh, sweetie.
The next level takes place just before Gohan dies, spoiler alert, and before Trunks travels to the past. In this level we have to collect these time machine things that are scattered about. The dragon radar in the corner serves as a mini-map, as well as a tool for locating enemies and collectibles, if you purchase the upgrade.
Okay, what the fuck? That's really confusing. If you look at the mini-map versus which way we actually have to go on the map. Look, I run this way, and I'm going the opposite direction from which way I'm facing.
I never noticed it.
I don't know that it was like that before.
At this point, I'd given up on collecting everything because you never get anything worthwhile. After finishing the game, you do unlock Pendulum Mode and some extra characters like Broly and Bardock, but you don't need to 100% the game. You just have to reach the end, which the developers must have considered that was enough. You can play any level as any character in Pendulum Mode, but everyone plays the same, so I don't know why you'd even bother. The level ends with a fight against androids 17 and 18. You can probably tell that I'm kind of running out of things to talk about because there just isn't really much to this game. The majority of the levels run together. You use a flawed combo system to take out the mobs, pick up some shit, and maybe fight a boss. That's pretty much it. We are back to the present day where the Z-Fighters are hunting for the androids that Trunks had warned them about. The game wants you to protect the buildings from being destroyed by the prototype androids, but it doesn't tell you which buildings. Is it these ones? This one?
Don't know.
I don't know. Sunday's Thursday. But the enemies don't seem to know either, as they just go after the player anyway. They aren't even trying to destroy the buildings. And then a truck drives by and the level ends? What? Yamcha gets got by the androids. Goku is suffering from the heart virus, so it is up to Vegeta to save the day. This boss fight lasts barely a minute in single player. Vegeta is already turned Super Saiyan, so he deals a ton of damage. Android 20, aka Dr. Gero, gets away, so we follow him to his hideout before he can wake up the other androids. There is a turret enemy in this area that I don't think appears anywhere else. There are also these holes in the ground that look like you can go down them, but you can't. We find the hideout, but we are too late, and then Vegeta gets decked by Android 18. While all this is happening, Piccolo goes to the lookout to fuse with Kami, and he unlocks his Super Namekian meter.
Okay.
It works the exact same as the Super Saiyan meter. I don't actually know what happens when Piccolo can transform because the fight with Android 17 didn't last long enough. I assume that he gets a damage boost, but I can't confirm this, and I'm not willing to replay this to find out, okay? Piccolo fails to take out Android 17 in time, and he gets absorbed by Cell, who we haven't seen yet. He just appears in the plot after this fight. Yeah, this game skips over a lot of the Cell saga. The first level in the Cell Saga is a sort of tutorial on how to do combos. Spoiler alert, this game only goes up to the Cell Saga. So in the final saga of the game, they decided to teach you about combos. To pass this level, you have to perform the combo that is displayed at the top of the screen before your opponent. For each combo, you will earn a certain amount of stars. The longer the combo, the more stars you will earn. You need to be the first to earn 8 stars or you will die. I'm not joking. You will spontaneously fall to the ground dead if you fail. The combos only count if the last hit of the combo actually lands. As Vegeta, we have to hunt down Cell throughout the level. Each time you catch up to him, it will enter the boss fight mode.
Beat his ass, son.
The Cybermen return in this level, even though it makes absolutely no sense for them to be here. They gang up on you and it's so easy to get stunned by attacks. You can guard from attacks, but because you are very rarely fighting one-on-one, aside from in boss fights, it's kind of useless. You'll be blocking one attack only to get blasted by another. Catching up to Cell, you'll find that he is healed in between fights. This isn't a big deal since Vegeta can turn Super Saiyan and deals so much more damage. When you catch up to Cell for the 3rd time, he will have achieved his perfect form. As long as you can transform, he should be no trouble.
just stun lock him like everybody else.
Sliding all over the place.
What the fuck?
We're back in the hyperbolic time chamber, doing the combo game again, but this time you have to get 11 stars. Honestly, I much prefer this little mini game rather than having another one-on-one fight. I can see what they were trying to do with this concept, it just isn't fun because the game's mechanics are so clunky.
Fucking carry on like, no, what am I saying?
I don't know.
Camera, that's what I meant to say.
The game ends strong with the worst boss fight in the entire game. It is also the hardest in the game, but it's not hard in a challenging way, but in a frustrating way. Okay, so you'll notice that I'm hitting Cell, but he is taking absolutely no damage. This is because you have to be Super Saiyan 2 to be able to damage him. Gohan starts the fight already transformed into a Super Saiyan, so you're already halfway there. But actually not really, because your transformation meter has already started to drain and you need twice as much super juice in order to get to Super Saiyan 2. So you need to quickly start hitting Cell to keep filling it up. But every time you miss time your hit, the meter starts draining again and you lose all of your progress. And this is what makes the fight so frustrating. And it's even worse in co-op.
No! 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 I was so close.
Now get your notepads everyone, because I am about to tell you the secret to beating this level. Forget about being Super Saiyan at the start of the fight. With the position you start in, it is already too late. Just let the transformation run out, then rebuild up the meter, this way it won't be constantly draining. Get Cell to the edge of the arena and then go Super Saiyan. Hit him with the longest combos you can. Keep him there for as long as possible. If he moves to the center, use the teleport to stay close, and you should be able to build up enough super juice. Once you turn Super Saiyan 2, Cell stands no chance. His health just melts away. And after the torturous fight, the game finally ends.
Oh, it's over. We're finished. Yes.
Cell is defeated once and for all, and everyone is happy. Except for me, because I had to play through this piece of shit twice. Dragon Ball Evolution can best be described as... yeah, the movie is pretty bad. So it's not much of a stretch to assume that the game based on it would be just as bad, but it's not that simple. This game was developed by DIMS, the same creators of the Budokai series, and more importantly they are the creators of the Shin Budokai series too, which had seen its second entry 2 years prior to this game's release. This game is essentially Shin Budokai 3. I'm being serious. I mean, look at this. I imagine this game carries a lot of stigma due to what it's based on. It's not as bad as you'd assume, but that doesn't mean that it's good. Dragon Ball Evolution, the game, is based on the movie that is based on the anime that is based on the manga. It was released on the PlayStation Portable on the 8th of April 2009, 2 days before the movie came out. So if you are very eager to experience the story of Dragon Ball Evolution, gamers could do so early. Those poor bastards. What can I say? This game looks like shit. The PSP just isn't powerful enough to pull off a realistic art style. Gone are the stylish cel-shaded models of the Budokai games, and instead we have a bunch of generic and bland looking characters with muddy textures. Since they are restricted to emulating the way the characters looked in the movie, there is just no artistic flair to any of them. The flat lighting also doesn't help. The aura and key effects are very muted, and most don't stand out all that much. But when they do use flashier moves like the Kamehameha, they look out of place, so it's kind of a lose-lose situation. They either look underwhelming or clash with the art style. Even their character portraits look like shit. They're just photos of the actors with what looks like a shitty Photoshop filter applied to them.
It's so low effort. None of the characters show any emotions, so it can be hard to tell how the dialogue is meant to be coming across. The game uses the same storytelling style as in the Shin Budokai games, with there being characters talking to each other through text boxes. But sometimes events happen and it's explained really badly through the text box, and the characters start saying all these things like, "Watch out for the lava," and you're like, "What lava? What the fuck is going on?" They really need more visuals to help with these cutscenes, because the writing just isn't good enough to convey to the player exactly what is happening. The portraits slide around the screen trying to convey action, but it looks really stupid, kinda like a kid smashing their action figures together. Okay, not like that.
Piccadilly whore!
Yeah, like that. There are a few fully animated cutscenes in the story mode. While the animation is bad, the sound design is even worse. Okay. There are often sound effects missing from the scenes, and it just makes them awkward as fuck. There is never any voices in the cutscenes either, which is weird considering they never seem to shut up during gameplay.
Take this! Bring out the healing force! It's the end! Done for!
At least for this game, they do have some different music, and it's not just the Budokai 3 soundtrack again. I have to say that the stages actually look pretty decent. There aren't very many of them, but the ones that they do have look quite nice. I especially like the one that takes place inside Goku's mind. It makes sense in the movie. Well, nothing in the movie makes sense, so I don't know, nothing makes sense. And the tournament stage you fight on during the credits is pretty cool. Oh yeah, you actually get to fight during the credits. It's a really nice feature, and I wouldn't mind seeing it in other games. The gameplay is Shin Budokai 2's gameplay, but stripped down a bit. For instance, there are no transformations, no flying, and worst of all, no customization. You got a health bar, a guard bar, and a key gauge, although I don't like how they've put the key gauge at the bottom. Now you have to glance at both the bottom and the top of the screen to get all of the information. It's objectively worse. You still have the light and heavy attacks that can be followed up with by a rush attack. You'll find that a lot of the characters have less ranged attacks, so a lot of the time you'll be focused on getting up and close to your opponent. Thankfully, the aura burst system is still here. If your character has enough ki, they can use the aura burst ability to increase their attack power and movement speed. It takes half a ki bar to activate aura burst, and the rest of the bar is steadily depleted with each subsequent action. While in aura burst mode, all movement will result in an aura dash, so you can use it for quick escapes or to get behind the opponent. The aura rush is a charge that bypasses everything but ultimates. The aura slam attack cannot be blocked, and while it can be cancelled into, it is easily interrupted. When using aura guard, even ultimate attacks are completely negated, but throws, fully charged slam attacks, and aura slams can still break it. Still, it's annoying that the AI has such a bad habit of spamming this move. Aura Burst Charge is now called Full Burst, and it works just the same with each character getting their own unique buff. There are technically 11 characters in the game, but I would argue that there's really only 10. Because Neo Piccolo is just Piccolo, but with a scarf. One thing this game has going for it is you can play as Bulma and Chi-Chi, which you very rarely get to do. But unfortunately, it's not the version of the character that people actually like. This is still Dragon Ball Evolution. Okay. You can also play as this. Bulma is quite a fun character. She uses a pair of pistols in place of key attacks. In fact, there are a few characters that utilise weapons, which is a nice change of pace. Bulma has this RNG attack where she throws a capsule at the opponent, and it can either be a teddy bear or a motorbike. It's a really creative way to incorporate the iconic capsule into combat. You can also fight as Ozaru, who is a lot smaller than I was expecting.
Not about size, it's about how you use it, baby. Yeah.
The controls are the same, a lot of the attacks have been reused, a lot of the animations have been reused. The gameplay is fantastic because it's basically Shin Budokai 2. but with a really sad reskin. The story mode of this game is a retelling of the Dragon Ball Evolution movie, and if you would like to hear my full thoughts on that, I have created a video about it, but to put it in the briefest way possible, it's terrible and I hate it, and shame on you 20th Century Fox. The story mode is just a bunch of fights that take place in between the visual novel segments. Here's a reenactment of playing these story segments.
It's too fast! How could you even tell what's on? I can tell.
You mostly play as Goku, but there are a few fights where you get to control someone else. The story mode isn't very difficult, and your only goal is to defeat your opponent, apart from in this one fight. During the fight between Master Roshi and Piccolo, you must defeat Piccolo using the Mafuba, which is Roshi's ultimate attack. It only does this one time in the entire story. They didn't even do this with the final fight between Goku and Piccolo, which is probably the most appropriate, as the Kamehameha, Goku's ultimate attack, is how Piccolo was defeated in the movie. This game's recreation of it somehow looks better. I just hate the way the Kamehameha looks in the film. It's so... you know what I mean? Besides the story mode, there are missions you can complete. These are pretty much what we were just discussing, where you have to fulfill a prerequisite to pass the mission. There are a total of 50, and each time you complete one, you'll be rewarded with Zenny. The Zenny can be used to unlock behind the scenes stuff from the movie. Yes, the movie, not the game, because that would be mildly interesting. And we can't have that! There's also a training, survival, and arcade mode, which are all pretty much just copy-pasted from Shin Budokai 1. One thing I'd like to point out though, that in arcade mode, Bulma is referred to as Bulma Enchanto. I have no idea why. In the movie, her last name is Briefs.
Bulma Briefs.
No clue on that one. If you were to isolate the gameplay, I mean just the fighting segments, Dragon Ball Evolution the game is actually pretty decent. But everything that surrounds the core gameplay is bloody awful. The graphics are ugly and the story sucks. There is no reason to play this game over Shin Budokai 2. You know what this game is? A really sad Shin Budokai 3. Oh, excuse me.